It's I think for me actually good tonight to be able to rise above politics. We've had a lot of politics, we've had a lot of difficult and rubbish and all the stuff we've seen. And tonight, actually, we in a way can rise above politics. And I want to also mention, by way of rising above politics, even though it's a little bit connected, is Lord Alfred Doves. Lord Alfred Doves put a motion through in the House of Lords, which is now finally been accepted by the government, which will allow the British government to accept unaccompanied children, minors, who are presently fleeing from conflict elsewhere in the world, and who are in Europe. There are a number of thousands of these children in Europe, many of them we actually don't even know of. And the government finally has accepted that it will take a very good number. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because today Harry, of course, was one of a group of boys and girls, there were girls too, who were known as the Boys. And Martin Gilbert wrote about the boys, the story of hundreds of children who, after the war, who had gone through the war, were brought over here to this country by the government and by the Central British Fund, which is the precursor, if I'm right, to World Jewish Relief. The CBF became what is now World Jewish Relief. And so in a sense there's a link there to a story that is happening to children of other cultures, to what we needed, the kindness that we needed to be shown to us after the Holocaust. But before that, Harry and Harry's family had gone through the Holocaust and had survived the difficulties, the pains, the traumas, the loss, the bereavement. And that's why we're here together tonight on Yom Hashoah. This is our day. We're pleased that Holocaust Memorial Day exists in January, because it means that we can share and talk to those outside. But I really feel that today, Yom HaShoah, a day set up in the early 50s by the government of Israel, is in a sense our day to reflect, to remember, and to mourn again. And so, without going into any of the story of Harry Olmert, because we're here to hear you, we're really privileged that you have come to join us here in Muswell Hill. And we look forward to hearing your words. Thank you, Harry.
Well, as you can see, my name is Harry Olmert. Can you see me? Can you hear me from over there?
Yeah.
Yep. Good. And I was not quite 12 years old when the war started. I was born in 1927. And in 1st September, of course, we knew actually what was going on, because we were living very near. I better go to the we were living.
It's anywhere in Wi-Fi.
We're going too far. Now that's a pre-war map of Poland, and we were living in Sosnowiec, as you can see down there on the bottom right-hand corner, very near the German border. We could go from our town into Germany, actually, in Tromkor. The town was an industrial town, coal mines, steelworks, and there were about 130,000 people living there, and about out was 130,000, about 30,000 were Jewish people. So it was quite a sizable community. Not only that, but we were very close actually to another very large community, Benjin. 60% of the people actually were Jewish, and that was only about 5 miles away. And in Katowice, which was another very big, quite big town, and so quite a lot of Jewish people living around there. Well, we knew what was going on actually in Germany because we were very near the German border, and many Germans actually lived in our town as well, because that part of Poland was Germany, of course, before 1918. So a lot of Germans actually were still living there, and so we could see the patterns of anti-Semitism as well, not only from the Germans but from the Polish people as well, as far as the Jewish boys walking back from school, they were always throwing stones at you, they say, Jew, go to Palestine, all this, typical things actually. But that was the beginning of the war. And the war started on the 1st of September, it was on a Friday, and then notices were put up throughout the town. All the people, all the men under the age of 45 had got to come and register to join the army. But by Sunday, when my father went to the offices, they were already closed, and even on Friday afternoon, all the Polish army was already retreating. They were completely disorganized as well, in ones and twos, so we knew that the end is more or less coming. On Sunday, my father decided we should leave the town and move down to where my grandmother lived, his mother. And there was a small town, an agricultural area. It's near Hashoah. It's not very far from Krakow. And that's what we did. We went to the train, and half an hour later the German planes came overhead and they bombed the train. So fortunately we managed to get off the train, and there were 8 of us, 6 children and 2 older sisters. I had a brother, an older brother, then it was me, and I had 2 younger sisters, and of course my parents. Anyway, we got off the train and we started walking, and it took us 4 days to get to the outskirts of where my grandmother lived. We stayed in villages, put up in barns, and just before the day, on the 4th day, my father decided the family should split. We could hear that the Germans are already approaching as well. So my mother, my older sister, and my brother, they went ahead to get into the town actually where my grandmother lived. And whilst they were gone, the Germans actually came into the village where we were hiding, and instinctively my father grabbed my 2 young sisters by the hand and they ran into the field, and I followed them as well, and they started shooting after us. So fortunately the German who was in charge of the group of soldiers started shouting out, "Stop shooting, it's a father and children who are running away." So we were scared that we were saved by that particular German. And when we ran into another village and we stopped there, and we waited until the evening, and in the evening we made our way into the town where my grandmother lived. And when we got there, it was a horrible sight we found. One of the German soldiers actually was killed over there, probably by a Polish soldier, whoever it was. But the Germans took the reprisal straight away. They took our father and his 2 grown-up sons, Jewish boys, and they shot them. And when we got in the evening, their bodies were still lying there, actually where they were shot. So it was a terrible sight. And we got into where my grandmother lived. And of course we were living in a semi-detached bungalow. The half of the bungalow was she was living, and the other half was the local rabbi was living there with his family. My father had 2 brothers actually living there as well, so we managed to accommodate ourselves, and we thought we'd stay there for a little while. And of course we stayed there because the Yom HaRoim were coming up as well, or Hashoah and Kippur, so we decided to stay there. But in the meantime, of course, the Germans took all the men out to work, and they first thing they did, they took the rabbi a swell out from and they cut his beard off. It was a terrible sight, and made him work like everybody else, all the other men, transferring goods from one warehouse to the other one, which is very near the railway line, and that's what they did all day. And the rabbi made a vow by then, he said, because I desecrated the Sabbath, he said he's never going to speak on the Sabbath again. And unfortunately that's what he did. Anyway, we stayed there until after Yom Kippur, and then we decided to go back to our town. We left everything behind, of course. We left our apartment, everything in it as well, and my father's business was there as well. They were making boots for the Polish cavalry, and so that's what we got back to Sosnowiec, our town, and the sight we experienced, we saw there was unbelievable. All the synagogues were burnt, all blown up. Lots of Jewish people were wandering around in the street because their apartments were taken away by the German people who were living there in the town as well. They just took whatever they wanted. Fortunately, our place was still intact. We managed to get in there, and we tried to make home as much as you possibly can. And that's what we did today. Food was scarce as well. People had to go out and do some work as well, but fortunately we still had a home. But the winter came very, very early there in Poland, and the winters were very, very severe. Its temperature was -20, -30, it was absolutely horrendous. And they couldn't get any coal, although it was a coal mining area. And all the coal actually was being shipped into Germany. Eventually, towards the end of the winter, we started breaking up the furniture in order to keep the house somehow warm for everybody. And in the spring, my father decided we should leave the town completely, take whatever we can, and move down to where we used to live, where my grandmother lived. Of course, when we got there, we had to find accommodation. And I think we managed to find better. Also, this picture I took in 1991, that's the first one I came to Poland. It was together with my two sons and one of my daughter-in-laws. And when we got there, we could see that a big square where we used to live. The houses right around the square, because those two new houses weren't there when we were there. We lived in that hut over there on the corner. And that was in I'm sorry I'm in the way, but
maybe you could just stand a little bit back.
I can't operate the computer.
How about, would you like me to
You
sit?
do.
No.
Good idea.
You tell me when you want it. Is that okay?
Oh, will you go? Thank you. All right, so you can see actually, of course there was no running water, nobody had any running water there. There was a lot of people living around there, and you see the vegetation there. That used to be the communal well. Everybody used to go there and collect water. And of course outside toilets as well. And of course it was the 8 of us couldn't live in that small place either. So my two older sisters were staying with my grandmothers and parents, and one bed, the two young sisters at another bed, and my brother and I were sleeping on a mattress on the floor. But of course immediately after we started to get new documentation from the Germans, and my father told us, don't tell them your real age. They didn't ask for birth certificates. They make sure that you tell them they were 2 years older than you actually are. If you're told him that I was only 12 years old. He hadn't got any rations at all because he wouldn't be able, from 14 years onwards, he could get rations. And that's how I totally started working there. In the summer, it was repairing the roads. It was really quite hard work. Sometimes actually we used to go and work for the Germans. The German actually army who were stationed there as well, but a railway junction there, so they were guarding it as well. And but we could have survived. In the agricultural area, my father brought a local leather back down from home actually, so we stored it in the, at the farm, and we managed to sell actually goods and food. We weren't starving, we didn't have a lot of food, but we managed to survive quite well. And that's how it was. And then 41. And,
How do you go to the next one, is it this?
and that was in 1942, that's when the Holocaust really started. Again, notice that the pindas throughout the town, that all the people, all the Jewish people had to assemble at certain places, take on whatever food we had, and just one small suitcase. And they told if you're going on resettlement, they left some Jewish people behind us, that they'll clean up the houses and they'll send them down to you. And we were taken away. And there was one man actually who was living directly opposite our house, there where we were living. He was an older man, and his wife was blind, and he knew he's not going to go anywhere at all with her. So he went out to the well, got a bucket of water, and he was carrying it back to his house. And there was a German standing in the middle of the square eating an apple, and he got his gun out and he shot him there and then. We could see what's happening straight away. We made our way straight, very quickly down to the center point. When we got down there was the first selection. Not women, just men. And they took an awful lot of men away, irrespective of whether they were old or young, because they didn't like anybody's look, they took them away. They took two of my uncles away as well at the time, the local rabbi, and many people. And we didn't know how many, of course. And then in 1991, when I was traveling back with my son, we drove past the small wood where we were taken in. Could you go back one?
Oh, sorry.
And my son looked out of the windows of the car, and he noticed a big, like a monument actually in front of the woods there. So we stopped it and went outside, out of it, and then you could see that on that monument it says that in this, remember the 630 Jews who were murdered in 1942 by the Nazis. And underneath it is a small tablet with this area is being looked after by our local primary school. So we knew how many people actually were murdered on that particular Friday morning as well. And that was exactly 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah in 1942. And that's how it was. We were driving, all the people who were driving past it would hear a lot of shootings going on. And once a woman actually on our truck, her husband was there as well, and she became hysterical. It really was absolutely, and she was screaming and crying. The Germans stopped the truck, pulled her down from the truck and they shot her, so to calm everybody down. And then we moved on, and to another town near, and then we got up to near Slomniki, which is not so far from Krakow, about 20 miles from Krakow. And that's where my mother's family came from. And we were the first ones to move off the main way right there. It was the trucks turned off the main road onto an open field. And when we got there, we could see some Polish people digging trenches right around the field. And we thought that our end was going to come. There was a railway line nearby, but then gradually more and more people kept arriving onto that field. Eventually there were about 2,000 people on that field. It was absolutely chock full. Fortunately the weather was hot, it was warm, but it was very, very damp. Whatever food we managed to take with us went molded very, very quickly there as well. And after 4 days, the trains arrived, cut trucks, and they took all the women and all the children, irrespective of whether they were old, young, fit. Every one of them, my grandmother, my mother, my aunts, one of my sisters, and my 2 young sisters, and into those trains. And the trains were standing there, a boiling hot summer's day. And then there was a selection of the men. And we had to walk past the Germans with our palms of our hands, showing them that we had any calluses on the hands. And if you had calluses that we put to one side, before it could work. And all the other people were shoved into the train together with the women as well. And the train moved off and we didn't know where it was going, of course. And then another train came and loaded up all the people, all the men who were standing there. And that's how we got onto the train, and we moved off, not very far, on about 20 miles, just outside Krakow. We got to Plaszów. All right, we came here next, I'll show you. This is the only picture I've got of my family. This is my mother out there, and at the bottom there is my mother and my older sister. They were at a wedding. They went to a wedding in 1941. It was absolutely horrendous to be able to get there to a wedding. And it was her niece who was getting married, and her brother who was sitting with his wife next to the bride. And the man, the bridegroom, was Hungarian, and Hungarian Jews still had protection by the government. So she married a Hungarian Jew, and she went to Hungary with him. Otherwise she probably would have been the same, happened to the same way as everybody else did. And when that's the only picture I got actually after the war. So I got a picture of my mother. Anyway, we arrived in Plaszów. And the main camp was still being built. As you can see, our camp was actually the small one across the road, and the camp was being built on the Jewish cemetery, the very, very large Jewish cemetery. I think you can see the next picture. And that's right, you can see that over there, the graves had been taken away, desecrated, and they were building up the camp actually on the Plaszów. And we were put to work, of course, straight away in Plaszów. We were building a railway embankment, and I still remember the name of the company that was building the railway embankment, a very large multinational, even now in existence now, Holocaust. And there was a big sign as well, and there was another sign next to it, Siemens, and they were doing the signalling, of course, on that embankment as well. And then my father ran away from the camp. He told us where he's going. He's going back home to see whether he can find out where all the people who have been taken away. And my younger sister, she wasn't with us. She was in hospital at the time. She had a very bad ear infection. And so he wanted to know what happened to her. So he ran away and got to the hospital My sister was still there, he took her out. Then 2 days later, my brother ran away from the camp as well. It was still quite a bit disorganized at the time, plus as you can see, they were still building the main camp then. So it was, then a few days later, my father sent a Polish man in a small truck, and he told him where I would be walking back from work, and the man was walking parallel with our group, actually going back from work to the camp, and he called out my name, and I looked around, he came over and took my hand, and we walked away. So he took me back to my father and my young sister, who was out from hospital, and my uncle, of course, as well. He was still there, and my brother. But it didn't last very long. We were there after about 10 days. And I don't remember, I can hear, among the Jewish community, I can tell them actually the day, because the Jewish days I remember very well. It was at Hashoah of 1942. My brother and I went out to a farm to see whether we can get some food for the family. And while we were out, we heard that the Germans surrounding up all the people who came back. Quite a number of them actually did run away and came back. And they rounded them up. So we stayed in a barn there during the day. And then in the evening, my brother left earlier, and I left half an hour later, but we were around that we were caught by the Germans. We were put right into jail overnight. And I was sent back to Plaszow, but not my brother. I didn't know where he was going, know where he went. So that was Plaszow. In the Plaszow camp, most of the people there were from Krakow. The Krakow ghetto was being liquidated as well at the time. And because the food was like this every day in all the camps, it was actually the same. We got a lump of bread in the evening and a plate of carrot soup. And that's all the food we got. The bread had to last you for 24 hours. In the morning before we went to work, there were no night shifts at the time there. We got a mug of, we call ersatz coffee, the substitute coffee, and that's all we had actually for the whole day, unless you managed to use strong-willed and kept a bit of bread actually left from the previous day. But the sleeping arrangements were even more terrible, dreadful. I don't know if you have been to a camp to visit, maybe just one of the camps to the Auschwitz or whatever it is, or see them on the pictures. You have bunk beds, 3 tiers up. But there in Plaszow we didn't have any bunk beds, we had those platforms, and we had to lie next to one another. We had absolutely, it was really horrendous. And the infestation was absolutely with bed bugs and lice. It was unbelievable, just unbelievable. One day, in the middle of the night, I couldn't stand it any longer, being practically eaten alive. I got up to bed and made my way to the showers. They were cold showers, obviously switched the lights on. And of course the Germans saw that the lights were on and came rushing in. They had some Jewish policemen actually with them as well. But the German commandant always was walking with 2 Alsatian dogs. And they burst open the door, and I thought he was going to let the dogs loose on me. But he was taken aback, and he turned to the other people who were walking with him, and he said, "Das ist Sauberkeit, this is cleanliness," and he walked away. Well, he didn't do it again. And then cousins actually in Plaszow as well, and 3 cousins actually. And we had a typhus epidemic, and I was taken there with the typhus as well. There was, obviously there was no medication there whatsoever. The only thing we had is just kept rehydrating ourselves with plenty of water. It's the only thing we could get. And one day I had a note sent in by my cousins, get dressed and sit by the window. And when the doctor came in, he asked me why I'm sitting here by the window dressed. So I showed him the window, he knew my cousins. So he said, oh, I stay where you are. And in the evening, my cousin sent in another note, you can get undressed, you can go back to bed. Apparently the Germans were deciding then, that particular day, whether we should take all the people who were infected with the typhus and eliminate them, save them, not to save the people actually who were still working. But they managed to be persuaded that the infection was abating, and so we managed to survive. And that's how it was then in Plaszow for nearly a year. Well, I think it was practically a year. And then everybody from Plaszow we were sent along loaded up on trucks, and we moved away to the middle of Poland, to the middle of Poland, were Munish's factory. It was Skarżysko Kamienne actually, and there were 3 factories there, A, B and C, and now I sent to factory C. When the truck arrived outside the gate of the factory, it was evening already. And if you look in all the lights and everything else was absolutely yellow. The trees were yellow. Lights were yellow, the people were yellow. Absolutely everything was yellow. We got in there and I was assigned into a hut. It was directly opposite the washroom. There were no showers even then, no showers on the floor. It was like a big trough. There were taps attached to it. That's the only washing facilities we had there. And the smell was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And I asked the people who were in the hut, what's that terrible smell? And they pointed out the big box which was out next to the washrooms. And they said, all the people who die, they put them in that box and once a week a truck comes to take them away. So you can imagine the absolutely horrendous smell, terrible, dreadful. And of course there we started working, all the people who were yellow, well they were working with picric acid, making landmines and sea mines. And the picric acid actually was eating into we had no protective clothing whatsoever. And if you got any picric acid, picrine actually, onto this body, not on the body, on the clothes, it got stiff and hard, it just couldn't do anything with it. So what we used to do actually, take the sacks, the paper sacks that came actually, the chemicals arrived, once they were empty, we put these paper sacks over our clothes to protect our clothes to a certain extent. It was absolutely horrendous. And the survival rate actually for people working on picrine was maximum 3 months. They didn't care, of course, in those days. There were still plenty of Jews in the camps to replace those who perished. And the food was even worse. This is the worst food you can possibly imagine. Even the bread. And bread wasn't actually baked with flour, on the flour. Apparently, the flour was mixed with sawdust, to lump it up as well, And the soup, the typical cabbage soup. And of course, we're working night shifts as well. 1 week day shift, 1 week night shift. And one night when I was on a day shift, we were supposed to sleep, of course, the night, for working ready for the following day. It was a very, very heavy snowfall, and the trains couldn't get by, couldn't get through with the empty shelves, which were being actually manufactured in another factory. So everybody who was in the huts, sleeping or resting for the following day, they got everybody out and into the woods where they got the storage huts there, where the empty shelves were stored, and we had to carry down the steel shelves into the factory to be filled up with explosives. And it was, the people were dropping dead like flies. It was absolutely terrible, really dreadful. But in the morning, when we put daylight, of course, I somehow instinctively decided not going to go back to the factory to work with the bakery. I attached myself to a transport company, and they let me stay there, fortunately. And I'm sure if I stayed with the bakery, I wouldn't be worried, I wouldn't be alive. But at least I was in the open air. The work was much harder actually than working at the bakery, because it wasn't hard work actually, it was tedious work, and it's the chemicals eating into you. It was absolutely horrendous. But so that's what I did. I stayed with the transport company, and I survived. And towards the 1943, that was 1943, 1944, we thought we were going to be liberated. We could hear the Russians approaching in Poland. We could hear the artillery duels between the Germans and the Russians, and we were approaching nearer and nearer, but then all of a sudden the Russians stopped, and they didn't progress any further into Poland. So they evacuated half the camp, and I remained still in the camp there, working still with the transport. But then there were selections every day. They didn't like somebody, they just got them out and they killed them. You can imagine actually people actually had the same, still wearing their clothes they came from home. They had at least some other places you got the striped uniform. People didn't get any striped uniform, they had their own clothes. Our shoes were all worn out. And there's something. And then some of the boys found that the trains, the wagons from the trains, had rubber tubes connecting it, hydraulic tubes, hydraulic brakes. And we went out and cut those hydraulic tubes off, split them open and nailed them down to their shoes, so at least they could walk had something to walk between themselves in the snow. But then, of course, the trains collided, and the Germans came in, examined the shoes of the people who knew what had happened, and they took 5 young boys out and they hung them. They let them hang there for 12 hours, hang them early in the morning. So we went off to work, and then when the people came back from the night, from the other shift, they were still hanging there. And that's how it was in 1944. In 1944, they all closed the camp completely. And we were sent to Buchenwald. Now, this is the classroom now. That's the way, if you go there, you can see actually that there's nothing actually left there. Completely nothing, absolutely nothing, an empty space. There's a few monuments here and there telling you what it was, except this big monument actually overlooking a 6-lane highway to show where the camp was. You see the next one. Oh, this is Gazisko again. When I went back in 1991 with my children, they wouldn't let us in nearby because they still might make ammunition in the factory. And then 6 years ago, 55 years ago, went back again. I took all my children gradually, still growing up, and then my grandchildren. We went back again, and they stopped manufacturing ammunition in there, so and the monument was put up there, and then by the Russians in 1943, 44, or maybe after the war. And the monument actually says here that between 1939 and 1945, I think there's about over 30,000 people were killed there. It doesn't say a word that over 30,000 people were Jews. There's nothing. Jews were completely ignored. Not only this, but I asked the Poles actually, if they look at the grade, they tried to excuse themselves with the communists, actually, the government who put it in. And of course, they're irreligious. And I said, why have you got a cross up there on the monument? Anyway, that's how it is now, and that's how when I got back here to England, I spoke, I went to a meeting in the Polish ambassador, actually went to the meeting as well, and I went over to him and I showed him the monument as well, and he said, I'll send it out to the local authorities in Poland and see. Yes. Anyway, that was Gass's coming into Buchenwald. And Buchenwald wasn't any particular place which is different from any other town, except the internal administration of Buchenwald was run by German prisoners, either political prisoners or criminals. You could recognize who the political prisoner by having either a red triangle for a political prisoner or a green triangle for a criminal. And fortunately, the youngsters who were in the camp, among them myself, we were taken by the political prisoners. We got cleaned up, got disinfected. We got those striped uniforms to wear. We got clogs to wear on our feet. And for the first time in months, we were clean. We were clean without any vermin. It was just unbelievable. And the political prisoners, they looked after us very, very well, we youngsters. We had to go and do some work, went to the quarry, picked up a stone, moved it from one place to another, and they told us to come back for lunch. We had a soup at lunchtime as well. It was actually like a holiday camp for us. It was unbelievable, but it didn't last. 2 weeks later, we had to move again to another munitions factory. And that was Schlieben. At the town, it's about equidistant from about 80 miles or 80 kilometers from Berlin, about 80 kilometers from Leipzig, and about the same distance as well, one other direction from Dresden. And that's where the factory was. And we manufactured a purely defensive weapon called Panzerfaust. It's like a bazooka, and the bombs actually were rhomboid shaped, and they were attached to a tube, and the explosive was in the bomb, and the propelled actually, the distance it could travel was about 80 meters, that's how far it could go. But once it hit the tank, it really disintegrated. It was purely a defensive weapon. And we used to work, there were 4 boilers, one in each corner of the big hall. And I and another boy were sitting in one boiler, taps from the boiler, and the molten explosives was running from the tap, and we had to hold it under the tap, fill it up with the bomb, and we picked up the other hand, put it into a tray, and the people came along when the tray was full of bombs and carried them away to solidify, and then take them away to be fitted with and with all whatever paraphernalia they need to do. And that's how we used to work on both days against shifts. But because we were working under the poison, and again, no protective clothing or no masks, nothing at all, we were sitting there breathing in the fumes actually coming up from the explosives, we used to get an extra soup. Midday, in the morning, we used to call it the poison soup, the gift soup. You know what we used to get, huh? And one night, the whole factory exploded. We didn't know. We didn't hear the planes in sabotage, or it was an accident. But everybody who was working on that night shift was killed. Even the town, which was sleeping, was not very far from the factory as well. That was half demolished as well, with all the explosions that were going on. The camp, which was about 2 kilometers away, that was completely demolished as well, with all the explosions and all that. And even the barbed wire fencing actually around the camp actually was ripped apart as well. And of course, as we all ran out into the field, we thought actually that we find a field sorted for the potatoes, but it wasn't, it was just sugar beet. And we had to make our way back again in the morning, but then the hard work really started. They didn't send the Germans in to supervise the rebuilding of the camp. They sent in Latvians, a Ukrainian assessment. And they were the most cruel people you could possibly imagine. We had to move the railway lines from one place to another because they wouldn't let us dismantle the rails from the sleepers. We had to carry whole sections of rails with the sleepers as well. It was absolutely horrendous. They cleared a site and they poured concrete slab straight away to put new boilers on as well. And once they got the boilers up, even the open air, at least the people who were working in the Giza using the explosives, we went back to do our own general usual work. It was quite a relief. And work was, the night shift in particular, was getting much easier. The planes were flying overhead, of course, bombing the cities. The British planes overnight and the Americans during the day. You could time the Americans actually flying over exactly at midday. They were flying over our area. And the food was getting a bit better as well. There weren't very many Jewish people left actually. No more Polish Jews. But then in 1944 there was a new influx of Hungarian Jews. They were sent to Hungary in 1944. And all the people who were killed in this explosion were replaced by Hungarian Jews. They came over and they were working with us. And we got, as I said, conditions improved an awful lot there. One day we even decided to go on strike. And the Germans came out and they said, why don't you want to go to work? And we said, we can't eat soup even. They said, why not? And I said, we have got no salt. And the Germans said, we get salt, you get salt. The trains, the railway lines were being bombed, the trains couldn't get through. So we had no choice but to go back to work. Hungarian Jews, of course, they only just came out more from home, so to speak, but they were in their own homes in 1944, so they were still more or less fresh. And one day we were walking back from work in Hungary. I don't even remember him, but I remember him, but I don't remember where he was used to work. And he came over to me and he says, you know, today is Yom Kippur. I didn't know anymore what dates actually were, but he obviously still remembered it. And he said, before you go into the kitchen to have the soup, come in with me into our hut. We've got a few people coming in and we say a few verses from the Reader service, you know, the last few verses of the Reader service. So he went in there and that's what he did actually. But then the camp was evacuated as well. That's where one group of people were taken away, sent away, didn't know where, of course, they went to the train. And a week later, the remainder of the camp evacuated. And we got into the train, and the train was going backwards and forwards from one place to another because it couldn't go very far. And one day the train was stopped at a very large railway junction, and in Chemnitz, very large industrial city. And then we found out somehow that the train parked parallel with ours has some provisions on it. So everybody got off our train and rushed over onto the other train to unwagon full of oats. I tied my trousers and I dropped this oats down to my trousers and got back onto the train, and then we moved on again. And eventually we landed in Theresienstadt. In Bochum we got new documentation as well, and they had a proper medical examination. And you can see on that my date of birth is 2 years older than I'm actually around, but that's how it goes. Next one. Yeah, now we got into Theresienstadt, which is in the Czech Republic. And when we got there, the place was absolutely heaving. It was so full of people. It was on the last place actually the Germans could actually send anybody there. And we arrived towards the end of February, the end of April 1945. And the friend I was working with actually, the boy he was sent away a week earlier, and I found him actually sitting there, actually starving. And I had the oats, so we made a small fire on the ground. We had a tin plate, everybody had a tin plate, and we started roasting the oats actually on the fire. We made eat kernels from the oats, and then I was assigned to go to in a hut, which was just outside the main camp. But on the 5th of May, I remember the Red Cross took over the camp. They put flags right around the camp, but the Germans were still outside the camp. They still put pot shots into the camp just to abuse themselves. But on the 8th of May, the last day of the war, the Russians came and they drove through the tanks to the gates into the camp, and everybody was rushed out. I was very, very ill, but they were really ill. I dragged myself down from my bank bed and walked out through the gates as well. And I could see all the Germans who went to live there in Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland, which was occupied by the Germans, actually, part of the Czech Republic. They were walking back into Germany with their cows and their goats, but I made my way back into the camp on my bike, and I don't remember anything afterwards what happened to me. Obviously somebody found me and it was taken down to a makeshift hospital, but I couldn't talk, and the whole body, it was in a spasm, and it really was, I was lying there, and it must be feeding me somehow, and the woman survived. I can't remember how long I was there. But then the friend of mine who was she had made the oath with, he was looking for me as well. And he came into the hospital to look for me. He found me. He sat down next to my bed. And then the nurse came over to him. And she asked him what my name was. And he told her. Then she bent over me. And she said, have you got a sister called Sarah? And I shook my head. And she said, I'm sure she's alive. I was with her in a camp until about 6 weeks before the end of the war in Austria. I was sent to Register, and she remained in that camp there. And from then on, she really looked after me just like her own brother. And yeah, obviously recovered. But when I was very ill, they took the names of all the youngsters in the camp. And they said anybody over under the age of 16 would come to England. And I particularly cared to come to England. I had no connection to England or nobody at all here. Never thought of England. Everybody wanted to go to Palestine. We were being told by the Poles to go to Palestine. We wanted to go to Palestine. We couldn't go there. Anyway, the nurse said, well, your name is not on the list. We didn't have your name, so you couldn't put your name on. But then she came in one day and she said, well, one of the boys who was on the list has found that his father is alive in Poland, and he's decided to go back to Poland. So he said, you go to England on his name. And that's how I came to England, on an assumed name, named Linsberg. And they told me they're in Prague, because we went to Prague, but don't worry, he said, we got all the documents for you on the name that we let you know by your different name. But the men played Mintzbeck for quite a little while. Not to my friends, but officially. But that's how I came to England, and we landed at Carlisle. We were playing from Prague. And 300 boys, a few girls, and we were transferred from Carlisle to the Lake District, to Windermere. So you can imagine what a transformation it was from hell to heaven. And we were camped there until for the workers who were assembling flying boats on the lake. And of course the war was over by then. We arrived until on VJ Day, because we had the coach were coming from Carlisle, and the drivers used to stop and we'd go pop into the pubs and we could hear a lot of singing, and so that we asked them what was going on. And they told us then that the war was Japan. I didn't even know that the war was still going on. But anyway, we arrived in Windermere, and everybody got a small room, blankets and sheets as well, beautiful. The dining room, the table was laid with bread, white bread. We hadn't seen white bread for months and months, years probably. And when there was some bread left on the table, before some of the people left, put it in their pockets, and then the following day, the staff in the dining room had to stop. They said, don't take bread out, you'll get bread when you come back again. Anyway, we stayed there, and we started learning, of course, English in particular. But I got the most terrible nightmares as well. And I never remember the nightmares. Even when I was in hospital in Theresienstadt, I had nightmares. But then I got one nightmare actually in Windermere, and opposite my room there was a psychologist who was sent up, a Central British Fund who was living with us, and he came rushing into the room. He woke me up, and he says, "Can you remember the night period?" And I did remember it. And unfortunately, it's not a nightmare I remembered actually, because he woke me up. He asked me to explain what it was, and I told him that I was standing facing my mother, and there was a wall being built, and the wall was getting higher and higher and higher until I stopped seeing my mother. And that's the only nightmare I remember. I had many nightmares afterwards as well, but fortunately I don't remember any of that. Anyway, that's how it was. We got into Windermere, and then gradually the people were several 300 boys then. Gradually the boys had been, lots of people managed to find relatives abroad, some played as far as South America and Australia, and gradually a few people moved away, and they split up to 300 into various hostels, sent away to London and Manchester and Bedford. And I was in the last group. There were 27 of us. We still needed more recuperation. We were sent up to Scotland, and that's what we went up to Scotland again. The most beautiful place, absolutely magnificent place. I don't really know Scotland, but just overlooking not very far from Loch Lomond. We had overlooking the Firth of Clyde. It was absolutely beautiful. And local authorities sent teachers up to teach us what the subject it was. We were too old, so everybody was, first of all, was supposed to be under 16, and then the government changed its mind and said under 15, but it was not really younger, so everybody was supposed to be under 16, became under 15, but we were not, we were much older. I was even 17 when I came here. And so we were in Scotland there for 1 year, and then the hospital moved to Glasgow. And the hospital in Glasgow was completely different, of course. It was just a big house. There were 7 of us in each room. And fortunately there was a library next door to it. And the cinema was right across the road, so we managed to lose each other somehow. And of course we had to start learning to take a job as well. Learn to train people. So I decided to go and learn to be a dental technician. And so I got a job and learning to be a dental technician. And I started going to evening classes as well. And then I moved up from the hostel and I went to live in Dix. And I was working, and I remember, of course, I got the archive from Central British Fund and got everything detailed. I kept everything they did for me from 1945, and I knew how much I was earning. I was earning £1.07 a week as an apprentice and dental technician. So, I attended evening classes every day, and the boss was very good, Dr. Levine, and I used to sit at the desk, at the bench, do my work, and I had a book on one side and a book on the other side, and I used to look at the books as much as I possibly can. Lunchtime I used to go to the library, so directly across the road from the surgery, dental surgery, the library, so we used to go to the very big library, actually, the Mitchell Library, and reference library, get all the books I wanted to. And that's how I did. I started studying, and I took my first exam, the Lords, to the GCSEs here in 1947. And then in 1948 I took the highest. I took the 3 subjects the highest. In those days, all you needed actually 2 subjects in the highest. I managed to get another one, started studying on myself. I did physics, chemistry, and then I looked through a book and I could see that dynamics was very similar actually to physics as well. So I took dynamics as well, and I passed all 3 exams. And I applied to university, because I didn't know you got to apply to university before you get the answers, so you passed or not, but I applied to university, and that's the problem. It's too late this year, and even then we wouldn't take you because we filed in the next serviceman anyway. So it was 1948. So I came into London, and I got the same answer as well. Too late for this year, I keep your name for the following year. And the Olympics were on in 1948, and I stayed in the hostel, and they got a number of free tickets as well. So I managed to go to the Olympics. I want to see the opening ceremony. I want to show some Zatterbeck, some Corn. So I've got a number of events, and then I've got to went back to Glasgow. And when I got back to Glasgow, on the letter from the university to come for an interview, and they changed their mind, and they got a place there in 1948. And that's when I started studying for dentistry. And in the meantime, I tried to find out that my sister is really alive. Not even when we were there, soon after we arrived in Windermere, but just couldn't find it. I got to the Red Cross and to the Jewish committee, and just probably because I knew we should probably be going back to our home where we used to live there, couldn't find her. And then a friend of mine who was with me in the same hostel in Scotland, he had an uncle who was living in the same town as well. I said, I would like to write to your uncle, perhaps he'll be able to find her. And I did write to her. And about 3 months later, a friend of mine came over to me with a letter. He said, I don't understand this letter. I got it to my uncle. And I looked at the letter and the letter, my sister's handwriting. And so she told me then that obviously she's alive, and that my brother is alive as well. My brother came back as well, back to Poland, but he didn't want to stay in Poland. My sister got married soon after she got back to the camps as well. But I said we couldn't find her, she changed her name, but I couldn't find her easily. And she got married to a man, and he was actually in Prussia as well. He was we've heard about the Schindler List, you know, the Schindler, you see the film properly, Schindler List. He was one of the Schindler people actually, was working there. And I know she married him. He managed to get his business back up from before the war. We had manufacturing, soft drinks. So he managed to get back in Poland actually then in 1945. So my sister stayed in Poland for 5 years. She had 2 children there. And in 1950 she left for Israel. And that's where she went from 1950 until 2 years ago. It will be 2 years in a week's time since she died. And she was 91 years old when she died. And she had 3 children, 10 grandchildren, about 14 or so great-grandchildren, and things like that. But then of course we wanted to know exactly what happened to all the people who were sent away to that field. And of course nobody knew where they were going, nobody knew where they went at the time. But of course after the war we did find out they were sent to Belzec. And Belzec was not a concentration camp, it was an extermination camp. And in 1991, I went with my two sons and we obviously wanted to go down to see Malta, to see whatever it was. We got to the place Belzec, which is quite a long way, very near the Ukrainian border, very near the Ukrainian border. We got there and we found a place, and there was just a big rusty gate hanging out loose, and an open field, and the dogs were running around digging up the bones. And after a really terrible, dreadful place, there were some concrete slabs actually at the end of the field, and there was a big notice up to as well, and it said that between February and December 1942, 600,000 Jews were murdered in that place. But it was the most terrible, depressing sight you could possibly imagine. And then I went back again in 2005 with my children and grandchildren, and the place was completely rebuilt. It was the Americans and the Israelis. They sent forensic archaeologists down to the site. They surveyed the site, and they found 11 mass graves. They made secure the mass graves. You could that was the window. You can see the human already. And go on, next one. And let's go for and that's when it got engaged from when I was in the army. And that's very wedding in that. And I was in the army then, and I was sent back to Germany to be in charge of the army then to Central Brunswick. And that I spent 18 months, 6 months I was at the Royal Medical Corps in charge of the dental centre there in Crookham, and then I went to Germany for 18 months. But I managed to get my wife out as well then, although I'm a national serviceman, but I managed to get my wife there, so we had something there. And that now came to the next one, continue then, because you see Belzec in a minute. This is Auschwitz as well. Have any of you been in Auschwitz yet? Let's go on. But again, when you see Auschwitz, not a typical picture of Auschwitz, and then you see the camps, and you see Maidanek later on as well. Auschwitz is, it's like a big museum, which is it's got to be, in order to get all those people there to tell them what's going on. Next one. Now this is Maidanek. This is another concentration camp that was near Lublin. Again, very near Belarus, eastern Poland. And there, Maidanek is a suburb of a very beautiful city, Lublin. A very large city, really beautiful city. And just like, can you imagine actually a concentration camp being from here, where South Cape, that's how it was, that's how it was. And one day near that monument, under that monument, there were all the ashes from the crematorium. And one day up nearby there's a site but it took 18,000 people in 24 hours to kill them. They shot them, they brought on trucks with loudspeakers, with loud music, because to deaden the sound of the shooting that were going on, so the people in the town could hear it, and that they killed 18,000 people in one day. Could you go to the next one, please? And that's, again, you see the typical bank beds there. But when you look in the, you can't imagine that's what it was like there, when the people were there. You look in there, it is clean, it's quiet, peaceful. But can you imagine that 300, 400 people in each good barracks? The smell and the crying, the cursing, it was unbelievable. You just can't imagine what it was like. It's impossible to reproduce it actually as well. Should go to the next one. Now this is Belfast. That's how it is now. I found here. They've got, after they surveyed this side, they put a lot of clinker from the steelworks and down, and you can see there at White Monument, that's where the gas chambers were. And that's where you can a walkway. You got the next one, please. And the next thing, that's where they show actually a representation of the sleepers, where the trains used to arrive there. And they used to come, that train used to arrive with 2,000 people every 2 hours. They unloaded the people who were still alive there and shot them into this gas chambers. And the gas chambers, actually the people were killed not with the gas like in the other concentration camp. They were using 2 Russian tank engines connected to the gas chambers, and used to pump in the carbon monoxide. And that's how the people actually killed, carbon monoxide. And they used to take the bodies out. There were no crematoria there, and just buried them very, very quickly. And they planted trees as well in order to hide it actually from future generations. They were hoping that nobody would know what was happening over there. But, and that's how they rebuilt it. You're going to walk down there, they walk down there, they have a ceremony with the East Coast, college down there. In the next one, and you can see around the periphery of the whole side, you've got names of all the towns, from all the places actually where the people would walk. Not from Poland, but people from as far away as Greece, even, and Yugoslavia, and Paris. Lots of people from all over Europe actually, that we go over there to know the picture. They've got a museum there now as well, so at least you can go there, you can spend some time and contemplate what's really like. I think that's it. And I think there's another one. Yeah, and one more. There's my 2 granddaughters. One of them is doing her MA in Israel now. The other is doing her A-level. So this is my whole family. I think one of them is sort of bat mitzvah or whatever. I've got 4 children, 4 sons. Sorry, I've got 2 sons and 2 daughters. And I've got 8 grandchildren, 4 grandsons and 4 granddaughters. And they're all, my 2 sons are lawyers. One of my daughters is a teacher down at IT. And my grandsons, one of them is working for EY. The other one is, now the young one is at Birmingham University doing engineering. And that's my family. And that's my story.